there's any document, or if there are documents showing that they owe, and you say there are. But from that report, it doesn't look as if Arik has seen that those documents
of course
to show that they owe.
It's invoices. Of course they have. What they're saying is they're bringing in a lot of technicalities. They're trying to take off claims they have about things like bed strikes and all that. They're trying to say that they shouldn't be charged landing and parking fees in Lagos because Lagos is their base. They lied to Nigerians in their press conference yesterday that it is a practice across the world, which is not true, and they know it's not true. What happens is at your base you don't pay for parking, but you pay for landing. You must pay for landing. And I've said to them, yes, we can discuss that. Yes, we can discuss discriminatory pricing, reducing your prices in airports like Akure and Ilorin where there's not much traffic. But I'm not going to do that until you start to commit to paying me. Then we can sit down and discuss that. We can even look at the possibility of backdating some of the reduced charges. We are flexible, but first of all, you have to accept that you owe me. To keep telling me I don't owe you, we can't move forward.
You know, in spite of all of this, as much as you may discountenance this or dismiss it, a lot of people who we speak to in this industry almost say the same things, to the extent that the deal with them from the minister fell through, didn't go through, and then there's this talk about HK Airline, which they also allege the minister is trying to float. And so, I mean, the Senate can recommend Arik be made a national carrier. Then the next day, this happens.
I think these are two different things. What happened yesterday, as I told you, was a union industrial action. It took me by surprise. I was in Abuja. I was told, I was in the shower, the phone kept ringing, and I said, oh, something must be wrong. I got out of the shower and picked up the phone, and they told me the unions have blocked the terminal, and they are blocking people from boarding Arik. And I thought, oh my God, there goes my day, you know. And eventually myself and the DG of NCA and the MD of NAM had to scramble to get seats on a plane to get back to Lagos to start managing this crisis and all that. It took me by surprise. It took all of us by surprise. And we worked almost through the night trying to talk to the unions to stop. And that continues, and I'm going to go back there now to manage this process so that it doesn't resort to violence. It's not very easy to eject people in the airport forcefully because we don't want violence in the airport. So we have to manage this tactfully, and that's what
I'm so happy when you said, well, no one would want Arik to fail, just the way some other countries will say this has gotten to a stage where we say it's too big to fail. But again, Mark will ask a question which we shouldn't just let go now, because do you think there's been some kind of collusion? It really doesn't make any kind of logic that someone will be owing and he keeps at it and it accumulates until we get to 7 billion. Is that an indictment that your officials haven't been doing their jobs the way they should have done?
Putting me on the spot here. This is very difficult to say. Whatever I say will be mere speculation. But I think it's just been a kind of practice that became congealed and just established. And I think what is going to break it is to establish clearly that it's no longer going to be acceptable. And then that will break it. But until now, I think they have a view that until we are forced to pay FAAN, we will get away. And I think we've reached that point now. They have to start paying us.
Did the minister give Arik Air a concession to pay over a certain period of time on the payment plan?
It wasn't Arik, it was all the airlines. The previous minister called everybody in and said the debts were unsustainable. I'm going to give you guys a 3-year grace period. Whatever your debts are, reconcile with the agencies and put a 3-year payment plan to pay, and I'll forgive you, interest-free for 3 years. And the agreement with Arik was 800 million naira a month, which fell flat straight away. But they're telling you people that they've been paying it. Maybe so they want to pretend that what they're buying passenger service charge is what they're paying us. Passenger service is not their bills; it's our money.
But have you heard either in passing rumors about the plan to bring in HK Airline by the minister?
Nope. There's no plan to bring in HK Airlines. It is in our roadmap for the transformation of the industry that there is a need for a flag carrier or 2 flag carriers that will be professional, that will be private, and that the government will just enable to start and operate.
Oh, it hasn't started yet?
No. And part of the roadshow, part of the roadshow was addressed to talking to potential investors who would come and join with Nigerian investors to float airlines that would then carry a flag for Nigeria. And that process is on right now, and that process is going to succeed. And
the minister is not part of it in terms of ownership?
She's the leader of it. She's the one entrusted with the execution of this roadmap. So she's going to make it happen, but it's got nothing to do with her.
She doesn't own any part of any of the forthcoming airlines?
I do not know that the minister is into the aviation business. I know she's in the oil business very successfully, but I don't know that she's in the aviation business.
I'm also a little curious because, you know, the aviation sector is one area that has been marked to receive intervention funds. I mean, even though we don't know whether the intervention funds were finally approved, whether they were received, whether it was only the airlines that were to benefit, whether FAAN was also to benefit from it as well. Can you give us some detail on what you know about the intervention fund?
The intervention fund was geared for the airlines. The idea is to get the airlines to access, cheaper financing through the CBN that would allow them to offset a lot of their debts, to free them up to be able to infuse capital and infuse running funds into their airlines. And a lot of that was disbursed not too long ago. A lot of it continues to be disbursed in a very tighter arrangement that ensures that if the intervention fund is accessed by an airline, it is used in the airline for the purpose for which it is given. One of the criticisms recently has been that when these intervention funds are released to the owners of the airlines, it's an accusation out there. I don't know how true it is. Rather than invest it in the airline itself, they use it for other purposes, and the airline remains in a quandary. And so what the CBN and the Federal Ministry of Aviation have done is to find means and ways, and we've worked together in a committee to ensure that the money, if it is released, the conditions are very tight and it is clearly used for the purpose for which it is released. So it's become tighter to access the money, but the purpose of that is to make sure that when the money is accessed, it is plowed straight into the reason why it's been given.
The non-payment of the money that Arik and a host of other airlines owed, did they affect the operations of FAAN in any way?
Of course. FAAN does not take any money from the federal government to run FAAN. We run FAAN with our internally generated revenue. And the biggest chunk of our internally generated revenue from our budget is what we expect to get from Arik, because it's our biggest carrier. So a big hole exists ab initio in our budget. We cannot achieve the things we want to do because there's a big hole. We just barely pay salaries and maintain the airports, and it is tricky to do that without this revenue. This revenue allows us to invest in capital expenditure, etc. We can't do that because the money is not coming in.
What about when Mavis was collecting these funds? We didn't have this problem at the time.
No, of course. Arik was never paying even with Mavis.
They were not?
Yes.
But there's always been this allegation that even the funds that Mavis was said 42 billion, they said to have remitted to FAAN. FAAN never could give account of it, and all of that controversy at the time.
Come off it. That is money released to FAAN over the period since the inception of the Mavis contract. That is FAAN's running costs. FAAN got its running costs every day. If they tell you they remitted 42 billion, what FAAN needed to have spent was about 70 billion. They don't tell you that part.
For that period?
Yes, that's the money to pay salaries, to maintain the airports. It was always in deficit, always in deficit.